Good day, everyone. I am Marigil C. Perez, and I will be presenting to you the article from Ralph Christian A. Zenarosa and Charlene M. Casiles entitled Distribution of Benthic Mollusks in the Intertidal Zone of Barangay Cayucayucan, Mercedes, Camarines Norte. And I will also give comments in this article. So, let's start. The main problem of this study is due to the lack of information about the status of mollusks. They don't have any idea if the mollusks are in the barangay Cayucayucan decreases or increases. So the problem they are trying to focus on is somehow researchable. However, the way the researchers stated the problem is a bit insufficient for me in terms of how the researchers will do to fulfill the lack of information about the status of the mollusks in the barangay Cayucayucan. So this study focused on the distribution of benthic mollusks in the intertidal zone of Barangay Cayucayucan, Mercedes, Camarines Norte. Specifically, this study aimed to identify the species of gastropods and bivalves present in the area. Second is to determine the abundance of benthic mollusks. And the third, compute the distribution pattern of mollusks in each site. So the objectives of this study expressed a relationship between the variables, which is to identify the distribution of the benthic mollusks in Barangay Cayucayucan. Then, it follows the specific objectives that can also support the main problem, which is to identify the species of gastropods and bivalves, the abundance, and the distribution pattern of the mollusks in each site, which were testable. However, there was no significant differences included in the objectives. So in this part, the review of literature, I only presented 3 statements from their study. So the first one is according to the study by Tabugo, Patinuan, Cespene, and Jasamali in 2013, the benthic mollusks organism can also serve as food and source of important luxury goods. Second one is from the study of Paul P. Panigrahi A.K. and Tripathi B. in 2014 that the abundance for the benthic mollusks are seasonally varied. Then the third one is from the studies of Vagela, Badja, and Kundu in 2013, along with the study of Medrano, MGT in 2015. It states that the individuals of mollusks found in the intertidal zone are in groups. The literature review of this study is merely focused on their problem. The 3 literatures stated in this section are the evidence that can convince the readers to support the problem. Apart from these 3 literatures stated, the other review of literature can also provide convincing evidence like stating the definitions of the intertidal zone and benthic mollusks, the life cycles of gastropods and bivalves, the ecological importance, and the distribution of the mollusks. On the other hand, there are statements in the literature that are not clearly stated, specifically in the life cycle of the bivalves. It does not explain how bivalves develop. It only says that it varies on the length, anatomy, and behavior of the species. The researchers can also include at least 3 examples of bivalves that are commonly found in the intertidal zone of any location. So here is the methodology of this article. The study used a descriptive research design to identify the benthic mollusks in the intertidal zone of Barangay Cayucayucan, Mercedes, Camarines Norte, which is also the location of their study. It only covers the rocky intertidal zone of the location. They used 6 transect lines to cover the 6 areas with an interval of 20 meters apart from each transect. To collect the samples, the subjects were stored in a pre-labeled Ziploc to identify the species. As for identification, it was sent to Bicol Shell Museum and was stored in a jar submerged in denatured alcohol. The World Register of Marine Species, the Shell's Handbook, and the Field Guide to Mollusks Resources of Laguna Gulf were used as a reference in identifying the species. The data gathered was tabulated using a database and frequency table. The abundance of the benthic mollusks was also identified using the direct count of the species. To identify the levels of the abundance of the species, they used the study of Anne Mellin Sorensen in 2012, which classified as very rare, which contains 1 to 2 individuals, rare 3 to 10, less abundant 11 to 30, abundant 21 to 50, and very abundant more than 51 individuals. Also, the distribution pattern of the benthic mollusks was characterized by random, regular, or clump dispersion. They used the distribution pattern formula to interpret the distribution patterns of the species. So, this study used an ideal research design, which is the descriptive research design. Because according to Nasaji in 2015, it describes a phenomenon and the characteristics in quantitative research. It can also be used in qualitative research by gathering the data using the frequencies, percentages, averages, and other statistical tool that analyzes relationships of the data. They also gave a coherent explanation of the methodology, and also they used a proper statistical tool. There was also insufficient detail that can be added to the methodology of this study to make it more reliable. The researchers can also add images to show the experimental site, since there are coordinates presented in this study. Also, they can include the label name of each species they gathered to each site to know how they named it before it was identified. And these details were based on the study of Manzo and others in 2014. So here is the summary of the results, which shows that 19 species of gastropods and bivalves were found in the intertidal zone of the Barangay Cayucayucan, Mercedes, Camarines Norte. So here these are the species found under the class Gastropoda, and here are the species that are found under class Bivalvia. For the abundance, the C. batiliariformis, according to the study, has the highest frequency with a total number of 2,264, followed by the other species along with their number of frequencies. And for the distribution, we have here the species found in each site. So in identification part, it presents the species that were found within the transect line of the intertidal zone in Barangay Cayucayucan. The species were all stated in the study and represented in tables along with each picture. However, the arrangement of the scientific name of each species can also be arranged alphabetically to make it readily available, like in the study of Raman and Berkati in 2010, entitled Spatial and Temporal Variations in the Species Composition and Abundance of Benthic Mollusks along 4 rocky shores of Karachi. The specific names of the species was arranged in alphabetical order. It is also shown in the study of Manzo and others in 2014, which presents the surveyed species name listed alphabetically. In the part of the abundance, the data showed that the species of C. batellariformis is the most abundant benthic mollusk, and then followed by the other species found. The presented table for the abundance of benthic mollusks makes the data concise. In the distribution of the benthic mollusks part has the same pattern of explaining the details in the abundance part, yet it does not have any table to show the distribution of the species found in each site. We have here the conclusion in this scientific article. So the conclusions in this study have been appropriately drawn from the data gathered. The researchers highlighted the most important results. However, they should at least state again the species of class Gastropoda and class Bivalvia, and also they can specify the species under class Gastropoda that is classified as more abundant than the class Bivalvia. And then they should also state the species observed that falls on the clump distribution in all 6 sites. The recommendations in this study, especially in the 4th recommendation, can help other researchers to get an idea to focus on different aspects of this study. The 2nd and the 3rd recommendations are the common recommendations that can answer the main problem of this study. The first recommendation opens other topics which can be related to the distribution of benthic mollusks. Moreover, they can also compare it to a different location within the place of Mercedes, Camarines Norte. This is based on the study of Roman and Bercati in 2010 entitled Spatial and Temporal Variations in the Species Composition and Abundance of Benthic Mollusks along 4 rocky shores of Karachi. They compared the 4 rocky shores in Karachi, and these can also strengthen the idea that the population density of the mollusks depends on the weather period. All in all, this study revealed several knowledge gaps, and this can be served as a basis for the abundance and distribution of the benthic mollusks in Barangay Kayukyukan. This paper clearly explained the aim of the study. It answered all the objectives and presented the data appropriately, which were the gastropods and bivalves were found in the rocky area of the intertidal zone, specifically 15 species of class Gastropoda and 4 species under class Bivalvia. Species under class Gastropoda are found to be more abundant as compared to class Bivalvia. All of the species observed fall under clump distribution in all 6 sites. This study can be a good reference for the future researchers, and the paper is done well and carried out simply. So thank you so much for listening.